If you would like to check out all of my sounds, samples, and presets, all links are in the bio. Today, we are going to be exploring a new genre called dark house. So artists like Regard, Lost Frequencies, and sometimes Martin Garrix, I think they represent this very well. And dark house isn't really a real thing. It's pretty much just deep house, but the lead synth in the drop, it has that really sputtering sound. Think of Loop by Martin Garrix, Where Are You Now by Lost Frequencies, and Ride It by Regard. That type of lead sound I think is crucial for dark house. And you can catch all the samples and presets in this project below for free, and anything that was processed a lot, I bounced it out with the processing to make it easier for you. We're gonna start off at 125 BPM. Not too fast, not too slow. And I actually found a vocal that I really liked on Splice.
No more sorries, no more pain, no more us for you to blame.
You can start songs 100 different ways, but I love starting with vocals. It just makes the process go a lot faster in my opinion. And you can get to that end product type of sound a lot faster. So I grabbed this E-piano preset and quickly threw down a very simple 6-5-4 progression. And these chords are really simple. There's no sevenths or anything like that. You could probably mix some of those in there if you wanted to. And I just mess with the voicings a little bit to make them fit with that vocal. Next, I wanted to get the groove going right out of the gate. It's a very common thing to do. So I grabbed a couple of loops, a top kick, and then I put all those sounds into a bus and cut out the high frequencies and also cut out the low frequencies, those mid-lows as well.
No more sorries, no more pain, no more us for you to blame.
It's almost giving it that radio effect. So simple enough. We're gonna come back to the verse in a little bit, and now we're gonna move on to the drop. So overall in the song, we're gonna keep things pretty minimal. We're not really gonna have that many elements in here. You can if you want to, if it comes down to that, but for the most part, you have to make the most of the essential elements. So what do we have? We have a bass line, we have a lead synth, we have the atmospheres, we have the drums. There's really not that much to choose from, so we have to make the most of those. And I don't have a lead melody just yet. What I like to do for deep house is to get a groove going, get a bass line, and then from there, just freestyle a melody on a keyboard, or you can draw them in as well. Let's get a clean, punchy kick. We're gonna recycle those drums from before and make sure you turn off that filter so we get the full effect of those drums. And then a few more elements to give it a little bit of energy. So let's get our bass layers going. We have our main bass. We have a bass from Famous. And a kick sample for a little bit more of that mid-range punch. So I put those into a bus, filtered out the high end, and made a rhythm using the same bass line from the verse. So let's bring that Rhodes back without the bass note because we just want the chords. We already have a bass line, so we don't really need that bass note anymore. All right, lead melody time. So I had made a Martin Garrix dark house type of patch for Nitric, and I thought this would work perfectly for the song. And I went for a melody that combined Martin Garrix's song Loop with a little bit of that Lost Frequencies 16th note as well. So we're gonna have that sputtery sound on the one, and then we're gonna have that 16th note, just like Lost Frequencies does all the time. And a very important thing we have to do for the leads is micro automations. These are small little things that you change within the lead throughout the lead melody. You change them ever so slightly, and one certain thing won't make that big of a difference, but if you get 6 or 7 things as a complete package, they make a very big difference working together. Things like delay and reverb are going to be, those are probably going to be the most common things, but this is why knowing simple sound design goes such a long way. Because you know all the little tricks, like putting the attack up a little bit, throwing in some white noise. You can obviously do things like the cutoff and things like that. You can do a lot of those little things that together make a really big difference. And to make the sound a lot fuller, I added the same exact patch except an octave lower. Mixed the volume in, and this really fattens it up a lot. and then some quick vocal chops complementing the lead. And I just wanted to go light with these almost as an atmospheric element because we still want that lead synth to be the main thing. And a quick pro tip is to, if you find yourself doing vocal chops with normal vocals and just not finding anything, to give your vocal chops more of a darker tone, you can just reverse the sample. And I'm not sure why it works, but obviously the melody is reversed at that point, but it just gives you a whole different palette to work with. And it's something Illenium does a lot, and it gives you these dark tones inside of the melody. And we can also add some very light atmospheric effects. And I recommend that you go light with these and make them sit as a bed and make sure everything else is really sticking out on top. These should be pretty low in volume. And I usually like to use samples for this, but in this project, I also use a synth as well. You can just play 1 or 2 notes at a time and create a little bit more of an ambience. Not full chords, but mainly just some of those ambient sounds. And now for a few more details. We have some drop impact effects, a few more drum accents, and then some transitional drop effects and just more effects in general. And for the build-up, just a very basic snare roll. And a pulsating Medusa preset that is playing the root note of the key of the song. And it's just rising in volume. So it's kind of like a riser, except it's not rising in pitch, it's just rising in volume. And it gives it a lot of tension in my opinion, and a few other typical riser effects. And one final thing I wanted to share is the sidechain. So usually I'll go for just a typical sidechain and I'll mix in the amount. But with Shaperbox 3, there's a multi-band sidechain preset. And this basically splits it into 3 bands. We have our low, mid, and high. The low band, which is the most important, it will duck away the bass frequencies from the kick, and so those don't really clash. But as we go to that mid-range and the high end, they don't need as much sidechain because it's not interfering with that kick. So I put that same preset on the bass and the lead. So the lead is getting sidechained less while the bass is getting more of that pumping sound. And it's also down to preference as well. Sometimes having that pumping sound is a lot better. But for example, if I put one simple sidechain on everything, here's what that sounds like. So we're getting a little bit of sidechain, but it's not really that obvious, and I think it just gives your track a different flavor in my opinion. So I would just watch out for that, and you probably don't need the multi-band. You can just mix it in a lot less. So maybe do 30% for the lead, and the bass you can maybe do 100%. It just depends. Just do what really sounds good. For the bass, I'll usually do a lot, but for the lead, I usually like to tone it down a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dark House. Here's the full playback.
No more sorries, no more pain. No more us for you to blame. Just our song that we let play again and again and again.